Here too.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all so very much for being here tonight. We're incredibly excited about tonight's book and event. Thank you all also for your patience as we got everything set. And I do apologize for the absence of additional seats at the moment. So we're very grateful to you. If you do need to move elsewhere in the store, there is a speaker at the rear that will also be projecting this too. So you will be able to hear it from the back of the space as well. My name is John, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge, of course, that we are here in Treaty 1 territory, and the land on which we gather is the traditional territory, the Anishinaabe, Innuit, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, of course, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. We are gathered here tonight to celebrate the launch of the latest novel by David Bergen, Days of Feasting and Rejoicing. Huge thanks to Goose Lane Editions, of course, for publishing this book and for making this evening a possibility. We're also delighted to be partnering with our good friends at Plume Winnipeg to co-present this event as part of Thin Air 2025, whose director, the one and only Charlene Deal, will be out at the end with closing comments and, most excitedly, signing procedure. The only thing I will put in your head right now is just to create a little bit more of a homey environment, and perhaps because we might have lost our minds, we are going to attempt to have the signing in this space. So there will be a moment of chaos while everybody gets into line right over here. And if you can't fit in the line, please feel free to just remain seated. Your time will come. A few years back, we were completely thrilled to hear that David was writing a Patricia Highsmith-style thriller, which is a perfect combination of words. And the fact that we had to carry that knowledge with us all this time without bursting out about it has been excruciating. Luckily, that book is now here, and while the comparison certainly stands, this is a Bergen book through and through, redolent with elegant and hypnotically precise prose, and his incomparable gift for rendering even the most disorienting interiority relatable and fully immersive. It's a really good book, and I'm very excited to play a small part in launching it into the world. In just a moment, your host for the evening will be here to introduce David before we move along to a conversation between the two. And after that, and a reading, if time permits, there will be an opportunity for all of you to ask questions. So please do allow those to percolate. When that time comes, I'll approach you with this microphone to ensure that those watching at home can hear your questions. And I will just beg your indulgence on that point. I now have the great pleasure of introducing tonight's host. Joan Thomas is, of course, the author of 5 novels, including Wild Hope, winner of the Howard Engel Award for Best Crime Novel set in Canada, and 5 Wives, winner of the 2019 Governor General's Literary Award for Fiction. Joan lives in Winnipeg. She is here tonight. Please give her a very warm welcome.
Thank you so much, John. And I'm really delighted to be hosting this event for David Bergen to celebrate the launch of his 14th book of fiction. And I was just remembering being at his first launch. I'm wondering how many of you were at the launch for Sitting Opposite My Brother. Do you remember? Yeah, it's very cool. Some of your offspring must have been a little small at that point. But yeah, it was at the McNally Robinson store on River in Osborne, and book launches were a little different then. There would be a couple of dozen people there, and the author would, thank their family and their editor and read something, and there would be wine glasses lined up on the cash desk. But I'm happy with how book launches have evolved, because they're one of the few chances we get to really talk about books in public spaces and ask questions of the author. That and festivals, and of course this event is both. It's both a festival and a launch. So thank you all for being here and for being avid readers and for being interested in exploring this book and in celebrating it with David. So as David's hometown fan base, we have watched his career with delight. From the first book, David Bergen had a voice that was his own. In fact, from the first short stories, I remember when he began to publish short fiction, and there was a lot of interest in his work from the beginning. He was writing about his own world, and he had the courage to ask hard questions of it, questions about faith and sexuality, and the way our lives are prescribed for us, and the way we actually find meaning. His writing is always described as spare, pared down, and compelling. This novel gives us a secondary character named Wamtok, a Thai police officer who has such a strong presence on the page that I think I would follow him through an ordinary day and not lose interest. So when I read David Bergen, I'm always asking, how does he do this? I've come to the conclusion that his writing is uncluttered because it is unerring. His descriptors are fresh and surprising, and at the same time, they are the only word that would work. It's normal at a book launch to name the various literary prizes a writer has won. David's list is long, and I'll just mention two of them. In 2005, The Time in Between won the Giller Prize. In 2010, The Matter with Morris was shortlisted for the book world's largest prize, the Dublin Literary Award. I would have picked David's last book for the Booker, but I wasn't invited to be on the jury. But with respect to outside recognition and prizes, David has been a real model for me in cultivating an attitude that keeps writers healthy and creative. It's a matter of staying focused on the work and the joy that it brings you. I want to talk for a minute about the astonishing shifts in form that David has made in his last two books. After 12 works of contemporary social realism, David published in 2023 a book of historical fiction, Away from the Dead, set during the Russian Revolution, set in fact in what we now know as Ukraine, and focusing in part on a community of whom many members eventually found their way to Manitoba. I read that book. It's kind of strange, but I read it with the sense that David had come into his own, which is not at all to take away anything from his earlier accomplishments. But there was something about his style that was so fantastic for historical fiction. There's a certain formality to his sentences, and he has a way of imbuing his characters with real dignity and humanity. So that we're reading not just a particular moment in time, but we're always reading about universals when we read David. In Away from the Dead, David writes also, I would say, with the confidence and the authority of the Russian masters, and with an artlessness that blew me away. This dive into the anarchy of 100 years ago is so immediate. It's about people like us, about the dark times we're living in. It's a real tour de force. And now, for something completely different. Not political chaos, but the chaos of a singular human psyche. A book that's being described as a literary thriller, a term David and I are going to deconstruct in a minute. And once again, I felt that David's dispassionate tone was perfect for this story. It's perfect for the physics lesson he gives us on the disposal of corpses, for one thing. It lends itself to droll moments, like amazing how a dead body just stays put. And though its form is so novel to David's body of work, it probes a terrain David has explored through his whole career, the way sex and death are dark undercurrents in all our moments and our days. More than most, this book depends on the slow reveal, on masterful pacing. It's so beautifully resolved / unresolved at the end. So this makes it very tricky to talk about in an author interview and without spoilers. And I don't just mean spoilers in terms of plot. I mean the gradual reveal of what's in the heart and mind of its central character, Esther. Elements that are never stated, but depend on our inference as readers. So this presents some challenges for us tonight. And I hesitate to undercut the delicious experience everybody is going to have in engaging themselves with Esther's mind. I don't want to ask David to spell out things that he very subtly implies. So we're going to have to tiptoe around certain things in our questions. So I'm going to ask Dave a few questions now, and then we're going to have a reading at the end of that conversation. So we sort of close off with his words hanging in the air, and hopefully there'll be a chance for you to ask questions as well.
We might as well just stop right now. Generous.
Thank you, David. Entirely deserved, right?
Joan, I first was introduced to Joan, I think, when you were doing book reviews for the Globe and Mail.
Yes.
Yes, and I kept waiting. Okay, Joan's got a book review coming out, and I was waiting with bated breath for your reviews because you just did an amazing job of reviewing books. And you also reviewed Margaret Atwood. And she didn't like you after that. but you were so incisive, so clear in your writing, and then you stopped.
Well, you know, it's a funny thing that you can't do both, apparently. I mean, creatively, it just dried up for me, the desire to do that. Fiction is a lot more fun. Yeah. So I recently received, and maybe you did, a newsletter from Penguin Random House that talked about the trends for the coming publishing year. And the first trend was horror, chills and thrills, it had in brackets. The third trend was acts of kindness. So I'm kind of wondering what we make of this, and if you see it as a bit of an insight into the moment we're at.
The moment I'm at, the publishing world is at. Oh, I mean, I believe, and nothing against publishers, but I believe that publishers really don't know what's going to work. And so they have a meeting and they say, this is what we should be doing. This is what we should be asking our authors to be doing. Well, you don't, if you want a good book, you don't ask an author to write to like a coloring book. You're coloring it in. So you just let the author come to you with a novel they produced, and then you throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. They have trouble throwing it at the wall, so it doesn't agree with
Right.
But that's not to do any disservice to publishers. We need them. But it is horror.
Well, I was very interested in that. Horror and acts of kindness. I just wondered what you saw in that. If it was indicative at all of.
Can they be both?
Maybe. Well, I kind of saw it as maybe saying something about the darkness of our political situation at this time. Like horror is a way of you know, parceling out the darkness to people in entertaining little bites, and acts of kindness, of course, are going in the other direction. Let's find a way to celebrate the individual.
I mean, I don't usually read horror, and in fact, I would have a hard time defining what exactly it is. I think Stephen King writes horror, doesn't he?
I think so.
Yes. I've dabbled with Stephen King, and who hasn't? Have I dabbled with acts of kindness? But you're right, they're two ends of the spectrum.
Not that you would choose a subject based on trends, but can you talk about what led you to write this book, which is such a departure from your early
I've said this before, and many of you might know this, but I wrote this book 15 years ago, and you saw an earlier version of it about 4 years ago? Yeah, about 4 years ago. And when I wrote it 15 years ago, I had just finished writing The Matter with Morris, publishing The Matter with Morris, and I was looking for something, I don't know, to move away from a literary novel, and this came to me, and so I wrote it. I sent it to my agent, who sort of hummed and hawed, who sent it to my publisher, who said, "This is the worst character I've ever read," and so that was that. And then we tried other publishers, and it didn't go. And so I put it away in my computer, left it alone. The title was always there. That was always the title. And then after I talked to you, you made some good suggestions, and then I rewrote it. I think you told me to lop off the first 35 pages or something like that, which I did. And then I realized I needed to get right into the story. I didn't need a bunch of backstory for this character. And I also didn't need to show her motivation, let the reader figure out her motivation, and then sent it out again. And perhaps people were seeing the world differently. Editors were seeing the world differently, and they wanted it. So I'm interested that it was a very deliberate move towards genre in your mind. So you don't draw a line between literary writing and genre writing? No.
You don't?
No. You know, one of my favorite novels is by a poet Deliverance, James Dickey. It was made into a great movie, but James Dickey was a fine poet.
Yeah.
And then he wrote Deliverance.
Right.
And that leap from his poetry, high writing, to Deliverance, which is a violent survival story, which is propulsive.
Yes.
I admired that. So I know I don't make a distinction between them.
But you don't watch, or you don't read a lot of genre writing, I think, is my impression. You may, like all of us, watch streamers, right? We're all watching mysteries on.
I mean, I grew up with genre writing. If we can define what genre writing is, what is genre? I gotcha. Is it? I mean, in a different, like, I used to read westerns.
Yeah.
I love Zane Grey. I grew up with Zane Grey.
Right.
Is Trixie Belden genre writing?
Probably, but we're not reading her anymore, right? Is that
No. But as a young reader, I devoured whatever was there, and I didn't think to myself. I found Fire Dwellers by Margaret Lawrence. I had no idea who Margaret Lawrence was, but she was in tandem with Zane Grey.
Wow,
Oh, yeah.
That's very rich.
Yeah. So it was sort of like, I'll take whatever.
Yeah.
And it's also a great way to learn how to write.
Yes.
Because there is something about crime writers and horror writers. They know how to catch the reader. And
Well, I remember my first agent, of whom I was terrified, would say, you Canadian writers, you're so intent on subtlety and nuance and the beautiful descriptive writing and all the interiority, but why don't you wed all those things to a real story?
Yeah.
And
But you've done that. You've wedded all that interiority to a real story. And
well, I would say with the last one, I dabbled in elements of crime, but I think for me it was a little bit of an uneasy mixture, because for one thing, I think literary novels tend to develop the characters in far more depth than genre novels do. And so when you do that, it's tough to kill them off, right? Murder mysteries we don't really know the victim, and so you're not invested in a character the same way. But we are invested in the characters of literary fiction. So the author can't be as high-handed.
So some people have called this a literary thriller.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that,
Do you?
actually. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you?
Literary crime novel, I prefer.
Okay.
I'm not sure but I can go with thriller. If you like it, Joan. but literary crime, but there too, it's like, I would never just write a crime novel. It has to be literary, right? It's almost like, I don't want to be just seen as a crime writer.
Right.
I want to be seen as a literary crime writer.
Yes.
So it's a bit pretentious.
Well, I mean, you're trying to write something that nobody's written before, whereas a very bare bones genre book just fulfills the conventions, right?
Yeah.
That it gives people what they're expecting, and they get really pissed off if it doesn't.
Yeah.
But you're trying to take that form and do something unique with it. I shouldn't say trying. He did.
No, I didn't. I did have a model.
Yes.
And that was Patricia Highsmith.
Yes.
Yes.
But I would say, David lent me Patricia Highsmith. I hadn't read The Talented Mr. Ripley before. And I would say that your character in this book is far more complex than Tom Ripley. Yes. I mean, Tom Ripley sort of comes with his psychopathology fully formed into the story, whereas Esther is groping her way to something.
Interesting.
But and so for me, this book is is more literary than Patricia Highsmith.
Okay. Wow. Have you read, this will give away something at the end, but have you read her literary book, The Price of Salt?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay. What does that give away? I'm not sure.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay, well, let's move to the whole notion of the psychological probing that you do in this book. I had sent David a few ideas for questions. I sort of threw the word evil at him. And I just said, this is not a word I used to use, or I want to use. I see it as deriving from a childhood view of the world, a binary good and evil view of the world. And, I don't tend to use it anymore, but events, every time I turn on the television, are sort of asking me to revive the word evil. And I just wondered whether you saw this book as a probing of what we call evil in the world?
No.
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 Okay.
I mean, it could be perceived by readers as a probing of evil, but I didn't, when I was writing it, I didn't think to myself, I'm going to explore what evil is.
Yes.
I was exploring a character who made decisions that forced her to make another decision and another decision. Someone who would read this book might say, well, Esther Maile is an evil character. In the same way, they might say that Iago is an evil character, but Iago is much more complex than just evil. You know, when he whispers in ears and drips poison.
Yes.
You know, yes, I suppose you could call it evil, but to me, because you moved away from the word, and now you're going back to the word evil.
Well, I'm going back to it in general parlance. That doesn't mean it looked for my writing. But
Yeah.
You have a very fine review by Craig Carlson of your book, and he said it will send readers scurrying to check out the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath. And I think you're also not diagnostic in your writing. You're not moralistic and you're not diagnostic.
No.
So you're more exploratory. You're following her. You're sort of putting this flashlight into this mind.
Yeah.
And
and for someone who in that physical world doesn't want to be seen and yet wants to be seen, we are watching her. So she's in some ways, the character in the novel has achieved her ultimate goal. She wants to be seen, and yet she doesn't want to be seen and caught. So there's that the complexity of I'm getting a little lost on this one.
No, that's interesting, because I didn't want to ask you a lot of questions about her character because of this business about spoilers, but I wanted to ask you, is she trying to lose herself or trying to find herself?
Really, a really good question. I don't think she knows at the beginning of the novel, she knows who she is. And that has to do with her deep loneliness and her lack of intimacy in her life and her lack of attachment. And I'm not sure by the end of the novel that she really knows herself. She's changed physically. She's done things that she hadn't done at the beginning of the novel, but there's still that deep longing. And so there is a longing in her character.
And where did you derive your ideas about this antisocial person and how she thinks? Would you say that she's a version of all of us, or is this something of a whole different nature?
Oh no, I think she's quite possibly all of us.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
for sure, which is kind of frightening.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of, I think we all try and keep our narcissism in check day to day, and I saw a lot of,
except if we're narcissistic.
Well, maybe, yeah. I sort of saw narcissism that had just evolved one crucial step, perhaps, beyond, what the average person might be coping with.
Oh, certainly, and I'm not sure. I've not met someone like Esther, but parts of her I've met, both in myself and in others, and then you lay them down and you exaggerate them, and you make them bigger, and you work them out, and then all of a sudden she's doing things that you never thought she would do.
Right.
Yeah.
Did she surprise you in the course of writing?
She did. Yeah.
She really surprised me at one point. My jaw kind of dropped. Why would you do that? And I'm not even talking about the very heinous acts. I'm talking about just something that was so careless and non-protective of her own trajectory as a criminal.
I think that's an interesting word to use. That the carelessness inside her, that it's almost like the impulsivity and the carelessness. It's almost like she can't control her desire to get caught, and then realizes, hold on, I might get caught, and then she pulls back.
Right. So, do you remember a book by somebody named Lionel Shriver? We need to talk about Kevin. She's a British writer, and she was writing about from a mother's point of view, the child was a school shooter. And my impression reading Lionel Shriver is that she saw this child as being born missing something essential, sort of a bad seed, And
did you hear her say that? Did she in an interview?
I don't remember where I formed that impression. I mean, I read the book a long time ago.
Oh, the character, the mother in there.
saw that, yes,
okay.
the son is having been born in
Yeah.
this way. And, just to say that there's kind of, that's one end of the polarity. The other end would be a character like Esther is formed by her society and by, say, deprivation or abuse in her home by other elements in her society and culture, that it's a matter of damage. So as you're writing this, did you find yourself somewhere along that continuum?
I did, and there were times when I thought, okay, I could reveal this in the story. I could talk about her past.
Yes.
I could talk about the trauma. I could talk about her lack of attachment, and I did. And those were sort of in the first 35 pages that I chopped off.
So if you're looking for them,
because I realized that was not the point of the story.
Yeah.
The point of the story was to follow her.
Yes.
And for you to deduce on your own what's going on with this woman. And I wasn't going to give you any easy answers.
Yes.
I didn't even have the answers in those first 35 pages. They were more silly. And it became sort of more of a trauma story. And this is what happens when you say, so, it's fiction. So did it actually happen to her? It didn't happen to her. Well, I decided it didn't happen to her, and you can figure out what happened to her.
Yes, I like this version without that backstory, because as you said, it becomes almost a moral fable. If you treat your child in these ways, these are the consequences.
Yeah.
We're left instead. I should just say that David uses a very intimate third person for Esther's narration, and it's fantastic because there's nobody saying to the reader, making generalizations about her character. We are just stuck in that mind. So it's very effective.
For all of us, and some of us understand the term intimate third person. What you mean by that is like almost first person.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's not. So so you are deep inside the head of Esther Maile, but it's third person voice. She went, she walked.
Yes.
But although there's a switch at a certain point when we go into that one talk's point of view.
Right.
The police captain.
Yeah. You have another third person narration.
And so it's kind of a trick that I'm gonna give you intimate third person, and then I'm gonna also give you a more objective net one talk, the police captain.
Yes. Now, although I've been warning everybody about spoilers, I did read the article that came out in the Free Press today, which was kind of full of them, actually. And one of the things that was observed there is you were interested in what readers glom onto in this story and what they sympathize with, what creates empathy. And I found that a really interesting observation. Like, we do usually identify with a character in a book. Where are we in this book?
Oh, I think I said in that article, and I can't remember what I said to Ben, but a synopsis would be that I wanted people to believe Esther and almost to like her and to cheer for her, even though what she was doing wouldn't necessarily be agreeable. And so if I could do that, then I have succeeded in writing a convincing character.
Right, and why do you want us to cheer for her?
I didn't want you to cheer for her, but I thought if I could convince you to cheer for her, then I mean, it's up to you. Did you cheer for her?
I cringed when she did stupid things that were going to lead to her being caught.
She might get caught.
Yeah, so I was, I suppose.
Yeah, and you didn't want to get her.
I was wishing to counsel her. Yeah. Okay, well, I maybe just moving to something very different, and that is that I think people who haven't read this book are in for a real treat with respect to the evocation of Thailand. It's just fantastic. And I could see your love for the place and your sort of savvy understanding of what happens in expat communities and in the hotel society in Thailand. It's very interesting, and food, of course. So that leads us, of course, to the title, Days of Feasting and Rejoicing. Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
I did talk about that in the article as well, didn't
I?
Yes. Yeah. Like I said, the title was there right from the beginning. I mean, I love Elena Ferrante's book, Days of Abandonment, and I always wanted to write a book at the end, Days of. And it couldn't be Days of Thunder, so it became Days of Feasting and Rejoicing. So I having grown up with the Bible, I knew about the book of Esther, the eponymous book based on the Queen of Esther. It tells the story of Queen of Esther, eponymous and fictional book that tells the story of Esther, Queen Esther, who discovers a plot against her and against the king, and has him killed and hung, and then goes on to slaughter a whole bunch more people. And then after the slaughtering of their enemies, there are days of feasting and rejoicing. And so I thought that's like Esther. Let's go and kill someone and then eat.
So it's a pretty ironic
Yes,
title.
it is. It's very ironic title.
Yeah, I also thought about Esther. She was a stranger in a strange land, right?
Yes.
And yeah, so is your Esther here. Yeah.
But the food, if I may say, there are references to food, but there are also, and this was a lot of fun, there are also murder weapons that have to do with food. And so that was part of it
That's
too.
right. I didn't pick that up, David.
I mean, that's not a spoiler to say there's a murder. No. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. I have a question that comes from our mutual friend Heidi Harms, and that is, Esther is reading all through. Clearly hasn't had this salutary effect that we hope reading has on people with her. But but Heidi said, what is she reading? She's picking books up in hotel lobbies and reading on the beach.
That's right. Pick a book, leave a book. Take a book, leave a book, something like that. And then I don't know, I don't have to read this, but she's reading from here, and so she took a book. Immediately she had liked the story because it was about a young woman who works in the glove section of a department store, and she serves an older married woman who is shopping, and straight away there is a sense of anguish and attraction between the two women. A complete coup de foudre. This astounded Esther, who still wanted to believe that love was possible. And I've had readers who've come up to me and said, I know that book.
Oh.
It's The Price of Salt by Patricia Highsmith. Yeah.
Okay.
So this was my nod to my source of the novel, my original story. Yeah. And it was made into a film called Carol with Kate Blanchett.
Okay.
You seen Carol?
I don't think so. No. What was Kate Blanchett's role?
Kate Blanchett was the woman who goes glove shopping and falls for this younger, poorer woman who's selling the gloves.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, and this was Patricia Highsmith. It's a very good novel.
Right. So that's what Esther's reading through.
Esther's reading that at the end of the novel. Yeah, so it's sort of fun.
Okay.
Yeah. And she knows Dostoevsky because on the plane coming back from Bali, she sees the boy beside her reading Crime and Punishment.
Okay.
And
that's also a lovely little illusion.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's fantastic. Wow. So I talked at the beginning about this kind of, I saw it as a swerve into different forms, but I'm not sure that you would even agree with me. Would you call your first 12 books contemporary social realism? And this is a departure or not?
I don't know. I've always sort of tried not to repeat myself in my novels and try something.
Not to say they're all the same.
No, but I understand what you mean by besides myself calling me a contemporary social realist, can you give me an example of another contemporary social realist? Are you a contemporary social realist?
I would say I am.
Yeah.
Aside from Curiosity, which was historical. But
right.
Yeah.
Which means set in a contemporary setting.
Yes.
And with
aiming to give us, illuminate the current world.
Illuminate our world as in our human.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, isn't she clearly a possibility? Isn't she clearly human?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't she clearly a part of social realism? I mean, look around you. Yeah. So I suppose maybe not so much a departure.
Right.
Yeah. But I was afraid that my readers, whoever my readers are, the few that I have, would be saying, Bergen, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you writing this book? I preferred Away from the Dead.
Yes.
And I was afraid of that.
Well, there is a sense that genre novels are less serious.
Yeah.
You had a far more serious focus with Away from the Dead.
Yeah.
And I guess because I was so bowled over by Away from the Dead, I wonder if you're not you don't feel that seduction of writing research-based fiction again, because it is, I know from my own experience, it's such a joy to just find other sources.
I was really hesitant to write that book, talking about Away from the Dead, the penultimate book. And I was hesitant because I'd never read historical fiction, just I'd never written crime, so I had to go at it and discovered that, whoa, you don't have to make anything up. It's all there. It's all there. The people are there. The characters are there. It's so rich.
It is. It furnishes your imagination.
And it was wonderful.
So you're not sort of thinking along those lines for any time?
I don't have anything.
You have to have.
I would love to.
Yeah.
I would love to.
So
but historical fiction, I think, has to be written in a certain way for me, like Master Georgie.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, or The Blue Flower. There was historical novels, but they're short, 200 pages each, and they don't throw all kinds of the kitchen sink into them to tell you about what people were wearing and what they ate and all that. It's just, the texture is so amazing.
Yes, your book had the freshness of a contemporary book while being set 100 years ago. So I guess I'm interested in, you're saying I don't have another idea. How do you know when you have another idea? Like things go through your mind and people suggest things and stuff. How do you know when an idea comes to you and it's a keeper, you're going to do it?
That's hard to know because I can't remember. I can't remember how I came to the stories that I wrote, other than sitting down in the chair and then just starting to write. And then making mistakes and then finding, oh, there's a story, oh, there's a character. So I think maybe I've been a bit lazy, or I've been renovating my son's basement, now my other son's kitchen. So I've been doing that.
Well, you've always amazed me in how quickly you write too. It's astonishing to me. I think sometimes your publishers were holding books back, right? Because something had been out too recently, they had to let a little bit of time go by, which is, pretty unusual. Writers, but it's fantastic. Can I ask you what you know what Esther's reading? Can I ask what you're reading these days?
I brought it along actually. I wanted to show you because I think I want to be a proponent of this book. It's called The Witness, and it's by Juan Jose Sayer, and he's a South American writer, and it takes place in the 1600s. So here's historical fiction, and it takes place in the 1600s, and the writer is the young boy who ends up abandoned or marooned after a shipwreck. He's a cabin boy, and he ends up shipwrecked in a colonial sort of setting, and comes across a cannibal, a tribe of cannibals. He's the only one that survives. And he's sort of seen as a god. I don't know why they see him as a god, but he's taken in. He's 13 or something like that, and then he moves on from there. They let him go at some point, but the details and in relation to what's happening in our world today as far as colonization goes, the whole idea of cannibalism, of eating the other, is really interesting. It's a very intelligent but propulsive book.
Right. Maybe McNally's could bring a few copies in.
Yes. Chris has probably read it.
I actually brought a book in my bag that I was going to pass on to you to lend. Have you read Antonia Nelson? She's a short story writer that I discovered through the New Yorker. The one that I have in my bag is called Female Troubles.
Okay. You're going to give it to me.
Yes, if you're interested. Just a really fine writer of contemporary social realism, which we've been talking about, but lots of, real dark, mordant edge and really well-developed characters. I think you would like it. So we're going to close off by asking David to read something that's kind of in the middle, and I'll let you set it up before you read.
Sure. It's very, very short. Joan chose this section. So Esther lived previously with Christine in a duplex in Panatnikom in Thailand. And Panatnikom is about an hour south of Bangkok. It is the house where our family lived for 3 years. And so I just took that house and I plunked my characters down in that house, okay? And there were cisterns and there was a duplex and there was a gazebo outside. And we had a wonderful woman who cooked for us a couple of times a week. So Christine has gone missing. Her brother her brother has come. Her brother's come to find her and is staying with Christine, okay? And the brother's name is Carl. Here we are.
Staying with Esther.
What's that?
Just staying with Esther, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Thank
Just
you.
to be clear.
Yeah, yes. Christine, it's not that. Esther, with Esther. They ate dinner together late in the shelter of the gazebo. It rained briefly. Carl did most of the talking. He said that the whole family was still mystified by Christine's decision to explore the world. He said, she's quite close to her mother and she's always divulged every wish, desire, and thought to her. So this is why her decision is so perplexing. And she hasn't written mother since she left for India. Not a word. Okay, thought Esther. She should have sent Christine's mother an email. That was a noticeable slip. Did she do drugs? Carl asked. Oh no, never. She was squeaky clean. Carl shook his head. He had piled his plate full of food in the most gauche manner and he was digging in with a fork, shoveling effortlessly, holding his utensil as a child would with a fist. Esther wondered if he was a bit simple. He talked as he chewed, said that he was happily married and that he and his wife Elaine were planning on children, 4 of them. He shook his head slowly, his eyes bright with possibility. Christine talked about you and Elaine, Esther said. She loved you. She gave you that? Carl pointed at the bracelet on Esther's wrist. Yes, just before she left. She wanted me to have it. Strange, Carl said. It was a gift from our mother. Oh no, this isn't the original. She had a copy made in a Mian village in northern Thailand. They're very good with jewelry there and made a perfect match, and Christine gave me a copy. She still has the original. The lie came so easily, just spilled out without any plan. She thought that of course the body that had washed up on shore in Bali would not have a bracelet like this, but perhaps the body would be decomposed enough that the bracelet might be presumed lost at sea. Or Carl might believe that Christine had taken the bracelet off at some point, which was the truth. She had taken it off and placed it in a drawer. Again, Esther suffered the horrific thought that Christine had had some bigger plan, a plan for Esther's death. She had never removed her bracelet before, and this thought, the realization that she had barely escaped with her own life, gave Esther strength once again. She had done nothing wrong. Carl became pensive. He said that he was tired, suffering from jet lag. He looked at his watch. Actually, it's morning for me right now. I should be getting up. He smiled and stood and said that he was going to bed. Christine left some things here. Yes, I want to go through them. Of course. She took her laptop. I believe so, Esther said. It was lying under Esther's bed, and she swallowed. Good night, Esther said. She stood and did what she did not want to do. She approached him and hugged him tightly and whispered that everything would be fine. Christine will let us know where she is, she said. He sank into her and sighed and returned the hug. He held her a little too long. In fact, he pushed his chest against hers, which was quite inappropriate. She pulled away and held his elbow and told him to sleep well. Everything will be brighter in the morning. And then he was gone, his head bowed, as if flummoxed by the air, the darkness, the change in temperature, the long hug, the different language, and by the certainty of his own thoughts.
Thank you so much. Notes in that last paragraph. So, questions?
So regarding those 35 pages that you had to take out of your novel, is now flung away into the ionosphere somewhere. Did you ever think about maybe putting that into a separate document and maybe saving it for later, and maybe using it as scenes for maybe Esther's dreams or something, like as she dreams at night, or
yeah,
something like that?
That's a good question. It's still there, and I could go back and use it in some way, but one of the accusations or one of the criticisms of this particular novel was that there were too many dreams.
One person said that, right?
One person said that, yeah, that there were too many dreams. So if I had used those as dreams, then we would have said, well, there's far too many dreams. But are you saying then perhaps that you would have liked a bit more information on where she's coming from?
Well, I'm thinking that if I had the same childhood as Esther, especially all the feelings of abandonment and abuse and all that stuff. I would think that many of those incidents would still haunt my dreams to this day. That's all.
Okay.
Can I just add, I think you're expressing a concern all of us feel that there's 35 pages of this wonderful prose that David writes just sitting there, right? Yeah.
And were there any other questions, I guess?
David, thank you so much. Just one quick question. Do you write every day, and how much do you produce every day?
When I'm in the throes of writing, yes, I write every day. These days, no. But if I'm in the midst of it, I sort of aim for a word count of 500 words per day, which just sounds rather ridiculous, like, you know, but gotta pick a number.
Yeah.
So 500. Yeah.
So two good pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Yeah. And sometimes you throw it out. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Dave.
Thank you.
What does it feel like to publish over 10 years after you wrote it? Like, what's your relationship with this book like as it's coming out? And how does that differ from publishing with a sort of more immediate relationship with writing it?
That's excellent question, because I think there was a remoteness to the book that I thought it was still the same book, but it had been written so long ago. Even though I was editing it, I didn't have that same sort of like, whoa, here's the book, right? It had been there for so long that it sort of was lingering like a dead flower over there. Yeah. And so I terrible metaphor. So yeah, but I think it's a good question, because there was a sense of distance that I had, that I felt. Yeah. Michaela actually spent a lot of time in Thailand as well. And so I'm going to ask her something. Did I get it right?
And any other questions? Oh. Dramatic pause. Oh, yes, there's a question over there.
It's actually a question for Joan to ask, because you introduced about the themes of death and sexuality, but you didn't ask anything about sexuality. So I thought maybe you'd have a question for David.
Certainly I could ask it. In the passage that David read, you might have picked up a hint of Puritanism maybe in this character.
Yes.
Which is very fascinating.
Well,
but
yeah,
is there also that dark undertow of
well, she's
a sexual drive that is kind of part of the mix of her
I mean, I would, of course, the reader can interpret it as they want, but I would think the way I see Esther is that she is afraid of sex and curious about sex, and she's particularly interested in young men who are probably close to her age, who are wounded birds, and she wants to take them up like a mother. And that doesn't necessarily mean in a sexual way, but it might eventually turn into that. And there is also the fact of not only does she want to change herself and run away from her life, she physically chooses, and this won't be a spoiler, I won't go into it, but she physically chooses to change herself. And Thailand is the best place to do that because it's so full of plastic surgeons. So it's but that's not, hey, if a book can be spoiled, it's not worth reading.
It's true. I mean, it implies that the whole thing was the plot. That's all you have. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thanks, so good catch.
This is not so much about the book itself, but I was wondering, I'm part of a book club, and we always have wonderful discussions after we read a book. So I was wondering, would you ever consider visiting a book club to talk about your book?
I have have done and I will do, and it depends on my availability and time
Okay.
and how much I get paid. No, that's not true.
Okay.
I don't get paid.
Do
I don't get paid.
you require payment for that?
No, I did not request payment, although I did get a gift from one book club one time, and it was one of those barbecue litters. Really?
So there you go.
Okay, my next choice is your book, so.
Okay. Well, okay, I have a caveat. I would love to go to a book club where everybody in the book club had actually bought my book.
Yes.
Bought my book. Yeah, rather than gotten it from the library, I bought one book and passed it around.
Well, just to say thank you. You've been a
thank
great
you.
audience, lovely questions, and it was such a pleasure, David.
Yeah,
to talk
it's
to
good
you
to
about
see
this.
so many friendly faces, and thanks for coming. On a warm evening when you could be playing ultimate frisbee.
It's true, beautiful layout.
Wow. I think I'm going to just go home and live with a bunch of beautiful, provocative ideas floating around in my head. I don't think it's very often we get to hear two really accomplished, really articulate writers who are also friends talk about the making, the decision-making, the carving off things. So thank you both for your sharing. You let us all sit in on the edge of something very personal and very, very lovely. I am taking away a couple of things, David, and it connects with, well, it was partly what you said at the very end about how I see Esther. And I thought partway through the conversation that there's always an invitation in your writing for what I would think of as radical empathy, where we are allowed to be close to a character, not quite understand why they might do something, but to kind of live in those spaces that are unfamiliar to us, but kind of push into spaces that are familiar to us and just kind of expand our own ideas about what is a character, how do we proceed in the world, how does our background impact how we think and how we behave. And I've always really loved this about your work, that I get to travel with a character that I feel like you are not telling me how to feel about that character. You're inviting me just to walk with them and see through their eyes and feel through their feelings. So I'm hugely appreciative of that. And I've been a huge fan of your stuff for a long time. Thank you all for being here. This is the third day of Thin Air, the festival that my team and I are responsible for. And I just realized I didn't say who I was. I'm Charlene Deal, in case you have not met me yet. And we're so delighted to be partnering with McNally from the point of departure for this festival, which is now in its 29th year. And honestly, I don't think this festival or this city would be what it is without this extraordinary bookstore, which creates such terrific community for all of us. So let's do a big round of applause for McNally and for John is an absolute joy to work with, even if he's a little bit of a ogre back there behind the and Chris and Angela, the people who just make this store such a beautiful, welcoming space. We are on, as I said, day 3 of 8. And there are little pink, swanky pink programs up here. So if you are curious about other stuff that we're doing, I can tell you a few other things that are happening here. We did have an event planned for tomorrow night with Duncan McCurdy, but it has been postponed. So if you were planning to come, put a pin on that, and we'll keep you posted about when it will be happening next. On Thursday night, we are here with Bob Joseph, whose book is 21 Things You Need to Know About Indigenous Self-Government. On Saturday night, the Land and Labor Poetry Collective will be launching a book called I'll Get Right on It, Poems on Working Life in a Climate Crisis. And on Sunday, our final day of the festival, we are here in the afternoon for Mijote Stories, named for beloved elder Theodore Mijote Fontaine. And our guest is Bruce McIver, who is the author of Indigenous Rights in 1 Minute, What You Need to Know to Talk Reconciliation. And he'll be in conversation with Sheila North Sunday afternoon. So come back here often, but you'd also be welcome at our main stages, at the Rachel Brand Theatre, at our afternoon events, Wednesday through Friday at the Bill and Helen Norrie Library. We've also got loads and loads of stuff happening in French. We've even got a walkabout slam event as part of Nuit Blanche. There's something for everybody, and we would love to see lots of you. And the only other thing I'll say about Thin Air is that there is a little survey QR code on the way out. So if you would like to be entered for a book prize, but also give us some feedback on what you like about the festival or what you would like to see in future festivals, please take a moment to just put your camera toward that thing, and it'll take you to the survey. Post-festival, we get to keep playing with the folks here at McNally, and we are welcoming Thomas Morton on Friday, October 3rd, just after we have landed the festival plane. We'll all be awake by then, I think. Friday at 7, and then later in the month on October 21st, we're welcoming back Savanakam Thamavangsa with Pick a Color, and Thomas Wharton will be in conversation with Ben Sigurdsson, and Savanakam, will be in conversation with Lindsay Wong. You can find all these things on the McNally website, of course, and come back here often. And David's right, you know, buy books, because that's really how writers stay afloat. I have to say, well, that, and maybe also renovating their children's kitchen. Not sure about that. The signing process here is David is going to sidle over here before anyone moves from their chair. And you can just line up. I know there's a lot of people, which is fabulous. It's great that you're all here, and hopefully you'll patiently wait and get in line and have David sign a copy of this book for you. And before we break, how about one more warm round of applause for Joan and David.